Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Jitsi Community Call. So, the update on our side is going to be more on the quick side. Um, I'm just going to say that we are having a bit of a snag with the availability of the end-to-end encryption option that it will currently only show if you have explicitly enabled field trials. That is due to the expiration of the origin flag that we used to tell Chrome that this functionality should be made available for our website. This will likely be fixed later through the day. We apologize for the inconvenience. Yeah, again, it should be fixed later through the day. I'm going to open the microphone for the team now and see if anyone wants to make any updates. In the meantime, um, uh, the things that we said we're working on and that haven't shipped, well, we're still working on them. Lobby specifically is getting closed, getting very close. The pre-join screen, which has been in very popular demand, is essentially done, but we uncovered one problem with it where devices were devices to be added during your residency on the pre-join screen, you would experience audio problems. So we're trying to work through that. We've also identified, actually, there's a couple of important things to talk about from a performance perspective. I'm going to talk about the first one, and then Pavel, maybe you can talk a little bit about your findings. So we have found out that there's a plethora of performance issues that people encounter, and they're all very different and very complex. But there are a couple of important strings that we think are now that we've put our finger on. So we're already working on bringing back layer suspension, which would have a big impact on the actual usage of CPU. However, we also figured out that especially on Windows, there are cases where usage of Jitsi will just bring your entire computer down. Like it's just going to shoot all the way up to 100% CPU utilization of your entire configuration. And that shouldn't be happening, right? We are a CPU intensive service, but it shouldn't go to that level. And so what we've found out, it's at this stage, it's unfortunately still closer to a suspicion than it is to a fact, but we have, let's say, we're very suspicious. Because what we found out is that usually this happens in the presence of antivirus software. And what we believe is causing this is usage of the WinSock layered service policy, which the antivirus applications use to register deep packet inspection filters on computer configurations. So what ends up happening is, these policies get executed on every incoming and outgoing packet of data. And with video, there's a lot, right? So, and the tricky part is that then the way that this layer works on Windows gets that CPU utilization to show up as part of your browser executable. So it's like impossible to see that it comes from your antivirus. So if any of you there have your users that are reporting similar issues, you might want to try experimenting with the antivirus and just removing it and seeing without and whatnot. So yeah, that was it's not exclusive to Jitsi. Other WebRTC-based services are going to show the same effect. Non-WebRTC services might not, right? So there's that to keep in mind. We've also found another issue with that has more to do with audio. Pavel, would you like to do an update on this one?
Yes, so we have this plugin for detecting voice activity, and it's using deprecated API to register audio processing node, and it affects the sender in a way that if the main JavaScript thread is loaded, it may block or interfere with the audio pipeline and then affect the inter-packet delay for audio, and that will result in a robotic voice. I'm still investigating this issue because actually disabling audio levels also helps with that. Yeah, I don't have any final conclusion on this yet.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to keep everyone updated on this one and try to fix it as soon as we can. Anyone else from the team wants to add anything? Okay, so in that case, opening the microphone to the floor. Questions and comments from the community, please.
Hi, this is Ben. Can you hear me?
Hi, Ben. We can hear you.
Hi. So I asked a question already on an old GitHub ticket from 2017, but I was curious because I saw that there was a PR and it was not merged. It had to do with the Goog DSCP flag. I was wondering why that was not sort of used in the constraints, or whether there's a reason to not use it. Yeah.
I think it just doesn't work. So if you look at Microsoft applications, for example, they don't even do DSCP. Apps are not allowed to set their own DSCP policies anymore. And the only way to do that is to configure, is for essentially the, as far as I understand it, to configure that. So the machine user has to be the one that puts this policy in place. And it has essentially been deprecated as a way of traffic prioritization. And the way that Microsoft advises that people do this is through essentially IP address and port based rules.
That would be set up on the router specifically.
Yeah, I mean, wherever you want it to be active, right? So wherever you would have used the DSCP markings, that's where you would.
Another one, so I just want to also point you to a community ticket we have opened about, so this actually happened specifically to me. When I change Wi-Fi networks, what I notice is that I still hear people, but they don't, to them I appear frozen, and they don't hear my audio. And this seems to be happening because only the WebSocket gets interrupted, not the ICE itself. And yeah, so it seems like there's some kind of state management bug or something like that. It's a ticket 68020 or on the community Jitsi. Just wanted to point you towards that. Yeah.
Okay, that's strange, because I think we do reestablish the socket when that sort of thing happens, but
yeah, so maybe the socket gets reestablished, but maybe sort of somewhere the routing doesn't refreshed.
Are you seeing this with Meet Jitsi, or are you seeing it with your own installation?
Oh no, this is with vanilla Meet. This is actually on the prod, yeah, on the Meet Jitsi we're just talking on right now. So this happens when I switch Wi-Fi networks. Yeah, to me I can hear everyone still, but the participants don't. To them I appear sort of frozen or disconnected.
So are you saying that they cannot hear you?
They cannot hear me, but I can hear them actually.
Okay, so that is weird. It shouldn't be happening. I wonder if it could be some sort of a network issue, because, well, I guess we'll give it a try. But I personally am doing that several times a day, and I don't have this issue. So, but I guess we should give it a look and see if we can.
Yeah, I was wondering whether maybe it has to do with that. Maybe if the network, the Wi-Fi switch happens extremely fast, that somehow that has a different effect on either the front end or the back end Jitsi.
Oh, so you're talking about switching from one Wi-Fi to another. You're not talking about switching from Wi-Fi to cellular or something like that.
No, I'm switching from one Wi-Fi network to another Wi-Fi network. Yeah.
Okay, we'll give it a try. That wasn't the case that I was referring to when I said it works for me multiple times a day. So
okay.
I guess we'll just give that a try. Thank you.
I just changed from 2 Wi-Fi's as well, like 5 minutes ago, and for me it just did the whole refreshing for 10-20 seconds, and then it worked. So it was some other issue, I guess. Just throwing in.
Yeah, so we have seen this with other people, but to me specifically, this happens that it does not do that sort of forced refresh. Yeah.
What do you do to make it work then? If you just reload the page on the new file, does it work then?
Right. If I restart Jitsi, then it works fine. If yeah, so basically, I think if the connection, definitely if sort of Jitsi gets interrupted as enough so that, let's say, ICE fails or something, some fatal error happens, then obviously the reload mechanism kicks in and fixes the situation. But this is sort of, when I switch the Wi-Fi, it happens, the transition is extremely quickly. I can still hear everyone, but to them I just appear frozen. And yeah, we've put the console logs. There's not much to see there, but we put them on the ticket. So yeah, the ticket is called "No audio and video after network change."
Yeah. Okay. And that is in multi-party sessions.
This is in multi-party sessions. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe bridge team. I guess there could be some sort of a nice update that we're not doing there, I suppose, because. Yeah, anyway, that might be worth checking in.
Sure.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Paul.
Hey, Paul.
How's everything going?
Well, you know.
Yeah, I do know. I think we're all going through that. I have a couple of questions on resolution. So we're trying to tweak lower the bandwidth requirements a bit, kind of tuning the the basically dropping the simulcast layer by default, kind of like the equivalent of layer suspension, but kind of always keeping it off the top layer, and also just tweaking some of the video preferred and ideal resolutions down a bit. Is there a way to, or is it hard coded to change the simulcast resolutions other than sort of like the number of layers of, effectively being 720, 360, 180? Is there a way to have a different scale of those resolutions, or is that
I think
hard-coded and live by them?
They are sort of hard-coded somewhat. I think if you just they all go off of the top one, right? So if your top one is at 720, it'll set the other ones accordingly. And if your top one is 540, then it shrinks the other ones as well, if I remember correctly. Anyone else from the team, feel free to interrupt me. But that was the case when we were looking at the source code like 3 years ago, and I don't know if anything's changed there.
Yeah, that is still the case actually. In Chrome, because we do STP munging, we don't have any control over what resolutions we want to specify for the simulcast layers. So whatever Chrome does, and it goes based on the top resolution.
I noticed there's a variable called K simulcast formats, which has a link to the WebRTC project. When we look at that, it looked like it was predefined. Like it looked like they're all hard coded. Because I do wonder. So first off, we're starting with 720, but always dropping that top layer, because if we were to just do 360 as a top resolution, we have that. I think we talked about this a while ago, where it seems like there's like a hardware limitation, or maybe it's in Chrome, where 360 and below always produces 4:3. And so if we want to keep the resolution consistent at 16:9, it's simplest just to kind of encode at 720, but then drop the top simulcast layer.
You can try 540 then.
Yeah,
I think that was the one step. That was the one step under. Yeah, there was this array somewhere in WebRTC that defines all the combinations. I don't remember the name of the file, and I think there was 540 as well as an option for top layer.
Okay, but then 540 may still be although I guess we could do 540 if we really wanted to go low. We could do 540 and potentially even drop 540 and just, but then give us, that would give us.
Yeah, that's what I thought you would. That's
yeah,
what I thought you wanted
okay.
to do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, yeah, that might be worth trying. Okay. Are there any other, and then aside from tweaking the preferred and ideal, whatever the on-stage size and preferred and ideal, or I guess just the preferred or the ideal thumbnail size, we kind of just lowered those a bit. Are there any other suggestions on things that we can do to kind of further optimize the bandwidth? Like, could we get any mileage of just force lowering the bit rate? Or yeah, anything along those lines?
Anyone? Guess not.
Okay.
I mean, you
I mean,
can,
it's
you can
also
reach
drop
out to me
temporal
as well.
layers.
I might have some
Say again.
I was saying you can reach out to me as well. I might have ideas. So I put my contact in the chat.
Oh, cool. Cool. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, we're sort of leveraging. I mean, can you force lower the temporal layers also, or I assume the temporal layers are always just, those are static at 30, 50.
Sorry, no, yeah, that's dumb. I was considering bridge and client requirements, but obviously you want to change that before the traffic even leaves the browser. So ignore what I said.
Yeah, we lowered the frame rate to 15 by default. Like, I just don't think we ever really need 30. And then yeah, we do see playback, like download of 15 or 7. You know, so that all seems to be working okay. The only other thing we're seeing sort of that seems to be, when bandwidth is low, we are still occasionally losing the screen share. If somebody's sharing their screen, we'll see that happen a fair amount. I tried lowering the frame rate, the min frame rate of screen share, and I think there is sort of this cap max frame rate to 500. I suppose we could just lower that maybe a little bit more, but one thing we do see a decent amount is that we get complaints from some people from is just the screen share can't be seen. And I think it's mostly on the download. But I guess I saw there was like a note about properly supporting simulcast for screen share, and I noticed in the WebRTC project there's some sort of like field trial for something with screen share, but I don't know if anybody has any information on that.
So what you're saying is you do have the cap screen share set to true, is it? And still some of you don't see it. Oh.
Yeah. But maybe that's just because they don't have sufficient bandwidth for the 500 plus. It's probably like it's 500 kilobits that it gets, plus whatever additional bandwidth there is. Maybe that's. And so one thing I wonder that may be happening is maybe somebody does have like technically sufficient bandwidth, but I think as soon as packet loss is detected, then the bandwidth gets scaled back, right? Understandably. And I wonder if part of what's happening is, for us, we have other concurrent requests happening. Like there are some other things happening in the background. And so I wonder if anybody has recommendations on like just lowering the bandwidth estimation to be even more conservative than what it is, to allow for a little headroom so that the potential for packet loss is slightly lessened. Because I think maybe what's happening is the bandwidth estimation assumes a certain range and it's okay, and then something else happens in the background, like some other requests, and then that kind of eats into the bandwidth, and it was sort of like maxed out as far as it can go up. And so when suddenly there are other things happening that are using up the bandwidth, that results in packet loss. And then when the packet loss is detected, then the bandwidth gets scaled back. So I'm wondering is like, I know there's like some point like on the front end side, there's like everything, the bandwidth estimation gets multiplied times 0.9. I wonder if we lower that, if we did like 0.8 or 0.7 to fool it into thinking, kind of like being more conservative in the bandwidth estimation, if that might prevent packet loss. Because I wonder if there's sort of like this, does that kind of make sense? Or is there any viability in that theory?
I think someone from the bridge team should comment about it. Have you tried playing with the resolution of the screen share that you're sending? Like once you get into a packet loss situation, what happens is like, because the screen size is too big, the iframe that gets sent out, the keyframe that gets sent out is big. And then when that doesn't get through, then again, there'll be a PLI, and then you'll just get into this loop where none of the the decoding client is not able to decode at all. So yeah, maybe playing with the screen share size, maybe reducing it. You can try some of that stuff.
How can we force constrain the size of the screen share?
So there is this WebRTC, not a WebRTC, but then on the media stream track, you can apply constraints and specify whatever resolution you want. So I can point you to the code where we actually do it in
great.
Jitsi Meet. Yeah, we do it when the presenter is enabled. Like if it's a screen share that's higher than 720p, we always resize it to 720p to save some CPU.
Right.
So you could apply the same thing for every screen share.
I see.
I can I can point to the code where we are actually doing it.
That'd be great. Because I think that is exactly what's happening. And I have a feeling, I know that last week I mentioned that there were some, we still do see crashes. Mm-hmm. And I feel like the incidence of crashes is also somewhat related to, I think it's probably a Chrome thing entirely, but I do wonder if part of it is if somebody has like a large screen or they're showing on a higher resolution, and that sort of exacerbates the problem. Because it's going to capture by default at whatever and try to share a keyframe of like maybe 1280 or 2000, something very, very high. And when in fact, I think it can be constrained to some lower baseline, and maybe that will mitigate the problem a bit.
Yeah. Okay, then I'll send you the link to the point, the code where we actually do it. Maybe that will help you.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. No problem.
Thanks, Jay. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
Hi, this is Kindle. Can you hear me?
Hi, Kindle. We can hear you.
Great. So I have a question about how to add a bit of functionality. Say that you have a user who is screen sharing with audio, and I'm interested in adding functionality that allows other participants to independently control the volume of the sharing user's desktop audio and microphone audio. Now I noticed that those two audio sources are actually mixed into a single stream before being sent to the other participants. So in other words, I'm wondering how can we have two audio streams sent from the sharing participant instead of just one? What level of effort would that entail, and exactly
substantial?
Yeah. Okay. Any detail that you can provide would be appreciated.
Well, currently the bridge is built around the notion of every endpoint emits one video and one audio stream, and we've been down that path several times before, and it just for desktop, for example, because we now support simultaneous desktop and video sending, but we mix them locally. So we've been wanting to change that, and it's just, it's always like, well, we could either do that, or we could do the much simpler thing of mixing them. And so far, the effort of changing the bridge to support multiple streams per sending endpoint is, I would say, has always tipped the scale in the opposite direction. So, I mean, you could go and change it that way, or you could also fake it. You could just do it by essentially, well, I guess that would, unless you're looking for individuals to adapt the two streams separately, you could just send requests back to the sender to change their value. I don't know, just a suggestion, but yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah. You're saying that it's a huge amount of effort to have two streams for a single participant.
Well, I wouldn't say huge, but it's definitely non-trivial, and it's, considering the current backlog of things to do, it's unlikely to make it for our team. It will probably happen someday, and I don't think it would be the most difficult thing we've ever done, but it wouldn't be trivial.
What could you tell me just a little more detail, like which files I would need to investigate if I did want to take on this task?
Boris, Brian, George, Jonathan?
I don't have anything really.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fairly entwined throughout the bridge. Things that are currently scoped to endpoint would need to be broken out. Some of the stuff that's currently scoped to endpoint would need to be broken out to be scoped to the streams or sources, and probably, in some of the signaling. We're still in some transition from an older model of I guess channels, and sort of an older model based on on how Jingle does things, of channels and streams, and which is not really applicable in the WebRTC world. So we already have some translation models, and that are to be get another translation or change that translation. So it'd be a fairly involved project. It's certainly something that we'd like to do, but it's not a small amount of work.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Armin here. About Kindle's question, what about duplicating session for same user? So that would be something like one user will have permissions to talk to microphone, and the other user would have the same permissions, but it would be a different audio channel.
I'm not following. I don't understand the question.
Well,
I think
basically what Kindle said, one user needs to have two channels. From one channel, audio would be collected through microphone, and through the other channel.
Okay, you're talking about two peer connections?
Yeah, two peer connections.
Yeah, that is also something that we've discussed as a potential way to do things faster, again, in the context of desktop. And it's not necessarily easier, because then you also have to make sure that the bridge, only sends traffic back to the user on only one of those. You don't want everything. Normally, every peer connection gets the same stuff back, right? So if you just go and do the two peer connections, they would both get the same traffic down from the bridge, right? So then you have to go and add code that would block this, and it ends up, and you have to obviously add the whole setup in libjitsi meet and all that. So it doesn't end up substantially easier.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I have a question. Does Jitsi support QoS marking?
Well, there was a question about this earlier in this call, about the DSCP markings. It's not so much a matter of Jitsi supporting them. It's mostly a factor of the fact that operating systems don't really do that anymore. Windows specifically doesn't let applications do that. You have to set that up as a policy. And what Microsoft recommends and what they do for their own products is encourage, if you need to do any sort of prioritization and traffic shaping, they encourage you to do it based on IP port rules.
Okay, so that's pretty much also saying that for like iPad or mobile device, it's kind of close to maybe just do it through IP and port.
For anything, I would say,
For
right?
anything.
That's the
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
I have a question.
Sure.
So, lobby. I don't know if you brought this up already. Lobby waiting room. When will that be available on like Jitsi, on meet.jitsi?
As soon as we're ready. We're working on it right now. We're through the final stages. We don't usually announce delivery dates in advance. So once it is available, we'll put it out here. But it's code complete, and it's a matter of tying up a few loose ends. There's also the matter of the fact that it actually needs to. Actually, sorry, I shouldn't even been said. That should have been more specific. Well, what I mean soon is we also need to do it on mobile. Then we need to release the version of mobile that has support for this and keep it out in the open for at least a couple weeks to make sure that enough people upgrade. And only then would we be able to enable it on Meet Jitsi. So that's with regard to Meet Jitsi. With regard to Jitsi Meet, I actually think that a lot of it is already merged. So if you have your own deployment, I'm not sure, Zoli or Cyril, if you're here, whether you can comment on that. Is any of that merged already? It should be, right?
Yeah, yes, everything is merged. And by default, it's configured to, on new installs, by default, it will be enabled.
Oh, there you go. It's just that it's not going to work on mobile. So keep that in mind.
Okay.
What are the main new features in the lobby? What are the things that it supports out of the box?
It's basically
Oh,
a
well,
moderator.
it just lets you add a lock on a room that says, sorry, I'm not sure what happened here. It adds a lock on a room that lets you specify that all new participants have to be approved by a moderator from within the room. So if a further participant joins, existing moderators in the room get a prompt to approve or reject the new participant. And
oh, that's really cool.
You know,
but that's only if the room is locked, I guess. So like that's you make if the room isn't locked.
It's a specific toggle for lobby. So you toggle it on or off. You can add a password, and if people have that password, they can bypass the lobby.
Got it. Cool. It's really neat.
And you said that's live. How can we use that feature now?
You can do your own Jitsi Meet installation.
Okay.
And on Meet Jitsi, it'll be live after we have mobile support and after we've shipped it and let it out there for a couple of weeks, then we enable it on Meet Jitsi.
Got it. Okay.
So maybe about a month out is a reasonable estimate.
Cool. Thank you.
Hi, this is Ben. I have another question, which is if we want to avoid sort of the ghost or the phantom user problem where the XMPP server still keeps around an existing endpoint that has left. For example, if you have a refresh or some kind of connection interruption and there's a refresh triggered by that, would it be a sound strategy to reuse an endpoint ID in those cases or a NIC? Or are there other approaches that you are aware of? Another one also is passing in, like, for example, using a user ID, an application user ID, and just keep reusing that. Yeah, that's the question.
I'm having a little bit of a doubt. I don't think that using the endpoint ID is a great idea because I believe it is visible to other participants as well. So if you're relying on that, then anyone can impersonate anyone in the room. So it would probably have to be something different. Of course, you're going to have to understand that were you to go down that path, you would make it impossible for people to join twice from the same browser into different tabs, which is fairly of an edge case, but some people use it when they want to do video and desktop separately, and like there are use cases where this has been used as a workaround for other things.
Yeah, I'm curious whether you have already sort of considered strategies for this. I mean, one would be obviously to kick out the previous user. We have not really yet tried, but maybe really just reusing. I don't know if there's a way to reuse with prosody the same.
You would have to kick out the old one. So Christo was working on that. I'm not sure if Christo's here, but Christo was working on that a couple of years ago, where we essentially wanted to have an identifier that is only shared between the prosody instance and the participant without being advertised to other people. It would require additional changes on the prosody modules, and yeah, it would end up effectively kicking out the old participant, but you could also mask that in Jitsi Meet and make it like, make it look like, it's just the same thing.
One alternative too would be to choose to go down the WebSocket path, because I think this is only a feature of Bosch, correct?
I'd like to add something here.
Yeah, go ahead.
In general, right now the reloads may be happening more often because we have disabled ICE restarts, but once we have like real ICE restarts implemented on the bridge, there shouldn't be really a reason, unless there is some bug somewhere, for the page to reload if you're disconnected for a shorter period than 60 seconds, let's say. Because we're able to reattach the WebSocket, and with ICE restart, you'll be able to fix up the media connection. Also about that prosody identifier, that's actually the resume token that eventually could be used to kind of connect to prosody and kill the old connection if that's needed, but I really don't think that should be needed once the ICE restarts on red.
Oh, that sounds great. Yeah, Pablo. And so from Aaron, what you were saying is that this is actually not an issue with WebSocket XMPP. Yeah, that would be even better. Yeah.
Well, I think yeah, Pablo brings up the issue of ICE restarts, which I hadn't even considered in this, but I believe that the Ghost participants, you do at least get some kind of resume capability from the WebSocket that you don't quite have from Bosch. So combined with the thing Pablo was talking about, using WebSocket certainly gives you a better view of the state of the user from the prosody side, and so it should cause your participants to vanish more quickly, is my understanding anyway.
Okay, that's great to hear. You. Thank you.
Well, just what is the disabled ICE restart? Could you elaborate just on the disabled ICE restarts? What that means?
Yes. So what we are doing on ICE failed was kind of hacky ICE restart, which was really expiring channels on the bridge and allocating new ones, and then sending new transport, and then it was doing the WebRTC ICE restart on the client, but for the bridge it was like a new session, and we had a bunch of issues because the client was actually keeping some state from the previous session, but for bridge it's a new session. And because of these issues, we decided to disable it for now until we have real ICE restart on the bridge just on the transport rail layer, so they have, the bridge doesn't lose that state.
I see. Okay. Interesting. That is good. I have one more follow-up question on the bandwidth. Like for Jitsi Media Transform, I know there's like some configuration settings. Is there any value in adjusting some of the bandwidth estimation settings in sort of the goal of, further tuning our bandwidth requirements to make it more aggressive? And I think I know there's some of the experiment settings, and then also just on the queue size and Jitsi Media Transform for the send and receive queues. If we had a lower bandwidth and fewer packets, is there value in reducing the queue size? Would that give us potentially lower latency?
I don't think anyone's going to answer, so I have a question as well. If that's okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. I posted the question that we spoke about 2 weeks ago about the WebRTC React Native library, and didn't get an answer. I'm just wondering if you guys know how long it approximately takes till, I guess, Saghul takes a look at it.
Saul is not here, who usually looks into that library. Can you just paste the link in the chat to that question?
Sure, will do. I posted it on the Jitsi community, and then I also posted it on the WebRTC, which is very interesting. It's React Native WebRTC.discourse. Don't know why you chose that, or he chose that link. And I had another question, completely different. A friend of mine said that he tested a Debian unstable Firefox on a Debian unstable, and for some reason it worked on one of his laptops, and on another one it didn't, even though it both had Debian and stable Firefox running on top of that latest version. Maybe you guys know a bit more. That sounds super weird to me, but hardware differences.
So the Firefox versions were the same on both the laptops?
Yes. He wrote here architecture i686 AMD64. Yeah.
So when you say it's not running, what is the problem he was saying? I mean, is it getting reloaded or?
Working at all? It's not loading, I guess. I don't remember anymore. It was such a long time ago. But I could ask again if it's like something that interests you.
I mean, if it was a long time ago, it might have been before full Firefox support was in. So.
Yeah, about a month and a half ago. For me, that's a long time.
Yeah, I don't know. Time is hard to say these days.
Is Firefox fully supported now?
Yes, it is.
Awesome.
Okay, I'll get back to you if he, yeah.
Yeah, if you have some more details about it, yeah. And the only thing we know of is like if you're using if you enable these features where you mask the user, like I know of one, like the user assist fingerprinting feature, if you enable, then what Firefox does is it actually spoofs the UA string to report a older version of Firefox, even though the API is based on the newer version. And there are some differences in the way we do simulcast. I mean, we have to do it, the SDP, there is the parameter in, SDP munging is a little bit different. So it would not work if you're spoofing the UA. So that is the only case we know of, which, yeah, maybe you can ask your friend to check that. But otherwise, yeah, we need more details.
Okay, I'll do that. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, this is Leo. I have a question. When I try to join a Jitsi meet from my mobile device, it always gives me a screen that says I have to download the app. Is there a reason why the web app, as a web app, it doesn't work on mobile and you have to actually install the application?
What browser and device are you trying this on?
I'm on an Android device, and I've tried it in both a Firefox and a Chrome browser.
And I think on Me Jitsi, we have actually added another button like Launch in Web. That should be there. You should be able to see it if it is a supported browser. And on Android, we do support Chrome and Firefox, both of them.
Yeah, thanks for that button. That was amazing. Thanks.
Oh, actually, I see that now. Oh, duh, I'm blind. Okay, yeah. Okay, so now, okay. I think I didn't look for the button because the issue was there before. But okay, perfect. I'll give that a try. Thank you so much.
Sure, no problem.
Oh, I have another question actually. I'm very curious about why did you choose not to? Why do you have two projects? Like, why don't you use React Native for web as well? Is it too much to rewrite, or?
I don't know. Does it make any sense really? Because on web you're getting native WebRTC, right? Already.
Well, you can reuse components, no?
So do you mean why do we not use React on web? Because React Native is only supposed to be a necessary layer on mobile, and we did have plans to essentially make sure that we use the same Jitsi Meet version everywhere, and only the components become different. But then, in order for that to happen, first of all, Jitsi Meet needs to be fully Reactified, which it still isn't. And that's a colossal effort. So, we keep slowly going there, but at this point, the main objective of React Native was to enable us to support mobile with less effort than pure native implementations, and that's been achieved. So we're not.
But if I understood correctly, all you have to do is just, I mean, it's a bit of configuration, but all you have to do is say, now, like, add the web, because it's just another bridge and just another layer, and then you already have the native code, and then it should work with React Native Web. No?
Well, I mean, try it out.
Will do.
So this is Brian. I have a quick question, or I hope to be quick. And it's around the blur functionality. And in the spirit of reducing bandwidth of video being transmitted, what do you guys think about, instead of blurring, it was an alpha? So we essentially changed that blur mask to transparent. Do you think that would reduce or have the effect of reducing video throughput?
Well, there's two issues with that. The first one is that that blur functionality is actually extremely CPU intensive. And as I've mentioned in this call, CPU intensity is kind of one of our bigger issues as per, from a user perception perspective. So much so that it actually greatly impacts frame rate and CPU utilization is just rather bad. The second point here is that video encoders such as VP8 and H.264 already sort of do that, right? And they do it quite efficiently. So for you to go in and just try to implement the same thing in JavaScript is, I don't know, maybe if you cut it out before it even reaches the codec, maybe it's going to make life easier a little bit for the codec, but you probably would have spent more CPU just trying to detect what it is that you want to send. And once you send it to the codec doesn't say the same stuff, again and again. Like, that's why it does delta frames and all that. So So overall, it is something that people often, kind of, that might be a good idea, but it doesn't, as far as I know, it doesn't appear to actually bring substantial improvements, and it has significant drawbacks.
The reason we have the blur effect is not to reduce bandwidth. It's just to indicate to the user that there's something going on.
Right. But I think the question was, can we build on that to also reduce bandwidth?
Exactly. So the blur is a blend of multiple colors in the background. So it does reduce, it dulls the number of pixels needing to be transcoded in the video compiler. But if that pixel, on the blur mask was all just one, or ideally transparent or black or, whatever, then that encoder, or in my mind, that encoder has an easier time. But I also understand too that it's super CPU intensive. Like when you turn on blur,
yes, if you just send black pixels there, right, the encoder would potentially do a little bit better from a CPU consumption perspective. Probably will end up being the same on a bandwidth level. But the thing is that in order for you to identify what it is that has to be black, you have to spend way more CPU than what the encoder was spending, because of just how these things work in JavaScript.
Hi, this is Jesse. I just had a follow-up question about CPU usage. On our instance of the code base that we've deployed, I've noticed that like my mobile device and my laptop, they both seem to be using quite a bit more CPU and generating quite a bit more heat with 5 to 7 users on a call, as compared to this meeting with maybe 25 people on the call. These things are not. My devices don't seem to be nearly as taxed. Any reasons for that we might want to look into?
Well, I mean, it depends a lot on how many people are actually sending video. Like traditionally, these calls are very, people tend to hide themselves to hide their view. So it's I'm in audio only, so I don't actually see who has video now. So that's probably it. Video rendering is one of the top 2 most CPU intensive tasks that we do together with encoding. So just rendering people is.
Yeah, I do notice that most of these users are not sharing video right now. That would be your suggestion.
But yeah, I would suspect that this is what's causing what you're seeing, and users can control that themselves by the video quality slider, and they could choose to go to low bandwidth or low quality or low bandwidth, which is just audio and desktop sharing and no video, so they can.
Yeah, I have experimented with that, and it didn't seem to be helping. And it didn't seem to be helping with the overheating issues on the instance that we've deployed. Maybe too specific of a question, but I had read a little bit online. It seemed to be something that other people had had experienced and had different suggestions. Was just wondering if there was anything that you could illuminate for us as to where we might be able to make any incremental improvements there, or if it was a known issue we just had to live with.
I don't. So the fact that you're not noticing any impact by playing with video surprises me. They should very clearly have an impact. I don't have an explanation for that. What we talked about in the beginning of the call, where we've also noticed some use of deprecated audio APIs that could contribute, I don't know, they would actually perform poorly in cases of high CPU load. I don't know if they actually contribute substantially to the CPU load. I don't know. Maybe that would be a thing too, but besides that, I don't really have anything else to. I'm out of ideas.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks for asking. We're nearly out of time here, so maybe one last question.
Hello. I have one question. Hello.
Shoot.
the Jitsi version 3 1.0.3992. It's working in almost all mobile phone when we do a view as a desktop mode. But other version of Jitsi, it's not working in older phones such as Android 5 and usually occur in Chinese phone. And not working means it's not allowing the permission of camera. Only 3992 version is working, and it is occur with Jitsi Meet Web version.
If you use Chrome on these these phones, older phones also, it will work absolutely fine.
No, in the desktop mode is working, but I mean, sorry, in older phone, Chrome browser is not supporting for getting the accessing the camera permission, while the Firefox is working.
Well, I suspect we'll get some Chrome limitations there, and then something on the older browsers.
Yeah.
I know that there's a whole branch of Androids that stopped updating at some point last year during the whole US-China thing.
But your default installation of Jitsi is working in all older and Chinese phone, and even a 3992 version of Jitsi is working in older and Chinese phone.
Then I don't know.
And this is not occur with me. I have seen many people have installed Jitsi, and I try my older phone, and I get the same result, that permission problem.
If you're saying that this works on Meet Jitsi, right? Because you said it works on the default. Well, I would, you can access the config of Meet Jitsi by just going to meetjitsi/config.js. I would compare, you might want to compare your own config.js with this one and see if you notice any, any specific differences there.
But when I do a default installation, latest version of all the Jitsi and video bridging and all, and when I do a downgrading to a Jitsi Meet-Web 3992 version, then everything is working normally.
I understand. It could be that with the newer version, we simply introduce new properties, and you might want to have a. That's just a, that's just a suggestion. I don't have anything else. If someone else did it here, has anything, feel free to jump in.
Try latest versions from unstable. We need to update stable soon.
Yeah, it's depend on the browser.
Right. All right. And with that, we're going to cut the session here. Everyone, thank you for joining, and see you again in 2 weeks. Have a wonderful week. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.